This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. So we're on the train here, we're headed to Hamburg, but it's important to know that when we speak about Hamburg, we can't really just refer to it as Hamburg. There's something like a triumvirate of cities, a group of three cities, which are known as Kehilos Ehu. Ehu stands for Altona, Hamburg, Wandsbek. And like Frankfurt and like Prague, this was one of the most storied cities. It was Ir Ve'im B'Yisrael. So it's one of the most prized Rabbanos in the world. And we're going to speak about really 8 Rabbanim now, very briefly, who either all served in Hamburg or at least wanted to serve in Hamburg. And that's very important to note. The first we're going to speak about is Rabbi Cheskel Katzenellenbogen, who we're going to be zoichet to see his cover today. He lived from 1668 to 1749. Shas Tshuvas Knesses Yecheskel, Rabbi Cheskel Katzenellenbogen. Who takes over for Rabbi Cheskel Katzenellenbogen? Now there's a vacancy, and like every rabbinic vacancy, there are many, many prabbos, much more prabbos than people who actually serve. We have 2 of the great all-time Rabbanim are both vying for the same position. Number 1, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, who lived from 1690 to 1764. He is the top candidate for the job, but vying for the same job, of course, is, don't forget, Rav Yaakov Emden. Because in all the discussion and the controversy between Rav Yaakov Emden and Rav Yonasan Eibeshitz, Rav Ruvain Margolius wrote a little compendium which is out of print. It's called Sibas Hisnagdusa Rav Yaakov Emden and Rav Yonasan Eibeshitz. Whatever the story was, whether it was the episode of the Kameos or perhaps something in the grave of Rav Yonasan Eibeshitz's wife, at the end of the day, Rav Yaakov Emden was vying for the job, and he didn't get the job. But it's more than that. Why would Rav Yaakov Emden want the job? Rav Yaakov Emden was a Rav in Emden. And he wanted the job because he thought he was groomed for the job. Because before Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz and before Rabbi Cheskel Katzenellenbogen was the Chacham Tzvi. The Chacham Tzvi, Rabbi Tzvi Ashkenazi, Rabbi Yaakov Emden's father. So Rabbi Yaakov Emden felt he's the incumbent. You know? The halacha is, if your father's a Rav and the position opens, you give it to the kid first, even if he's not the most fitting candidate. So he felt he was fit for the job. Moreover, Rabbi Yaakov Emden's grandfather was a Rav of Ehu. Who's that? Rav Meshulam Merlish Naimark, the Chacham Tzvi's Shver. By the way, it's just interesting. One time, the Chacham Tzvi would sign his name Tzvi. So Yaakov Emden would ask, why do you sign your name Tzvi? You should write Ben your father. You should write Harav. He says Tzvi stands for Tzvi Ben Yaakov. That's why I write my name Tzvi, because Tzvi is Tzvi Ben Yaakov. And you, Yaakov, you're going to sign your name Yaivitz. Why Yaivitz? Yaakov ben Tzvi. That's where Yaivitz comes from. Yaakov ben Tzvi. So anyway, Rabbi Yaakov Emden is vying for the job. It's in his blood, he feels. His father was the Rav of Ehu, Altona, Hamburg, Wandsbek. His grandfather was the Rav there. And he felt that he's the best candidate, and ultimately he did not get the position. So with all the various political factors or halachic factors, at the end of the day, this is something to bear in mind also, that Rabbi Yaakov Emden lived in Ehu. It's not only that he didn't get the job and he had to move elsewhere. He moved there, he lived there, he had a printing press there, and he wasn't the Rav of the city, he had his own private minyan. Following Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz was nifter in 1764. For 3 years, Rabbi Yitzchak Horowitz, Rabbi Itzula Hamburg, Rabbi Yitzchak Horowitz was the Rav in Ehu. He was followed a little bit after by Rabbi Rafal HaKoyen, Rabbi Rafal Hamburger, the Marpei Lashon, the Chavetz Chaim quotes him. Actually, Rabbi Rafal Hamburg, we're going to learn, gave up the Rabbanos. Because after writing a book about the importance of Lashon Hara, not speaking Lashon Hara, he realized that being a Rav and not speaking Lashon Hara are not usually compatible. So he gave up the Rabbanos. Well, because he appreciated the value of Shmiras HaLashon. And then finally, one of the greatest Rabbanim in Ehu, in Altona, Hamburg, Wandsbek was Rav Yaakov Edlinger, the Aruch LaNer. That I'm going to share with you a picture of the Aruch LaNer. And the Aruch LaNer, of course, wrote many Masechtos. He wrote Bikurei Yaakov, which is graced by the footnotes of Rabbi Kiva Eger himself. So I don't think you could get The fact that somebody would give a gadol a haskama, anyone could get a haskama for anything. But if Rabbi Akiva Eger wrote footnotes on your sefer, ein lecha haskama gadol lamizu. So again, we learned there were 7 Rabbanim who served in Ehu. Rabbi Shulam Mirlish Naimark, father-in-law of the Chacham Tzvi, grandfather of Yaakov Emden, the Chacham Tzvi himself, the Knesset Yechezkel, Rabbi Yechezkel Katzenellenbogen, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, Rabbi Itzula Hamburger, Rabbi Rafal HaKoyin of Hamburg, and then finally the Aruch Laner. So this is one of the central cities in the Jewish people for the last few hundred years, and Be'ez Hashem will be by many of these Makaimais very soon. Shkoyach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.